Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another New World video. In today's video, we are going to go over everything you need to know to become the ultimate group healer. You are responsible for keeping the core army healthy and maintaining the proper position to keep outputting heals. As always, there will be timestamps in the description below, so you can browse for specific spots you might be interested in. Thank you all so much for the support on all of the other healing guides, and if you want me to make a video on anything specifically, make sure to leave it down in the description below. Now let's get right into the video. For the attributes, 300 focus and 210 constitution is going to be your best option. Having the 10 extra points in constitution will increase your survival by quite a bit, and it might even save your life from that one extra damage. Moving on to the build, sir, we have three amazing options to take, and that is either going to be with Splash of Light, Light's Embrace, or Beacon. The main two core spells will always be Divine's Embrace and Sacred Ground. The first build we will start off with is the Divine's Embrace, Sacred Ground, and Light's Embrace builds. This build is for one of your standard point healers as well as your backline protection groups. As you can see here, we have 1 point available. If you like to heavy attack a lot and try to get these intensify stacks and put it in intensify, if you do not heavy attack a lot and you like to play just light attack and take the connection ability. I will say though that intensify is 100% the higher skill cap one to take. If you can land these heavy attacks every 10 seconds, it is going to boost your healing output tremendously and save your allies. Next up, we have the Divine's Embrace, Sacred Ground, and Splash of Light build. This build is going to be another option for your point healers as well as people who play in the enemy road. Splash of Light is the best build for preventing group-wide death. As you can see here, Splash of Light heals all of your group members for 60% weapon damage. This is the only group-wide burst healing ability in the game, so it is very prominent in point healer groups. Lastly, we have one of the most well-known builds in the game. That is going to be the Divine's Embrace, Sacred Ground, and Beacon builds. This is going to be another option for your point healers as well as people who play directly or slightly off of the point, especially in those top and bottom quadrants. This is the best healing build in the game for consistent healing simply because Beacon is so strong at keeping up those heals over time. As you can see here, Beacon heals in a 3-meter radius for 16% weapon damage each second for 10 seconds, which does get increased to 15 seconds from this perk, Radiance's Blessing. This is one of the most user-friendly healer builds in the game and the one that I would recommend to start using if you are starting your healing journey. For the side weapon here, there is no better option than the Rapier. It is the highest mobility and survivability weapon in the game, especially with the likes of Riposte, Evade, and Flesh. These are going to be our main three options to take. Some core skills in the Rapier tree is going to be Controlled Breathing. You gain 3 stamina on a hit. Of course, we have Red Currents. Critical strikes reduce all cooldowns by 5%. And last but not least, we have Swiftness. Gain 3% haste for 4 seconds on Rapier hits. These 3 perks are really going to make the Rapier that much stronger. Moving on to the gear, we are on the New World Guide website, which has each of the builds we just talked about. We have the Light's Embrace, Splash of Light, and Beacon group healer build here. It's going to be down in the description. So we just clicked on the Light's Embrace group healer best in slot guide I just created. It's going to have the attributes, the abilities we just went over, but the big important pieces here we need to talk about today is going to be the perks on our armor, weapons, and jewelry. This is all going to be down in this website, so make sure you guys go here and check it out for yourselves. First off, before we go over all of this, let's talk about what is mandatory as a healer in this meta. The first thing we need to talk about is going to be resilience. We want to have 5 resilience. The next thing is refreshing. We need 5 refreshing, and lastly, we need to have as many weapon perks as our build requires. In this case, for the Light's Embrace, Sacred Ground, and Divine Embrace build, we need to have accelerating Light's Embrace and fortifying Sacred Ground on our armor while having refreshing Divine's Embrace on our life staff. Once we take care of those 3 mandatory things, 5 resilience, 5 refreshing, and then weapon perks, we are good to go to slot whatever 3rd perk of our choice. In this guide here, I have decided to put Elemental Aversion as my 3rd perk of choice, but it doesn't technically matter what 3rd perk you choose as long as it's something that benefits your playstyle. One thing I will note though is that generally Elemental Aversion and Freedom is better in groups that have to play near the backside of point, while Physical Aversion is better for players who play more in the road or towards that front of the point. There's a lot more blunderbuss and bow players in the enemy backlane that end up shooting you. Now that we covered the armor, let's talk about the weapons and jewelry here. So for the life staff, there is no better option than the glowing life crystal staff, which is Blessed, Refreshing Divine's Embrace, and Refreshing Move. The big thing here though is the Rapier. A lot of people still like to run Keen Speed, and Sundering Riposte. items. I'm going to tell you guys today, if you guys do not know this, Keen, Keenly Jagged, and Refreshing Fletch is going to be your best in-slot option if you can craft this. The reasoning behind Keen and Keenly Jagged on the Rapier is because of the Energized Arboreal Rune Glass. As you guys see here, it converts 40% of damage dealt to nature, and then you also gain +4 stamina on hit as the second part. That is the energized part. It says it has a 3-second cooldown, but I'm going to tell you guys today that Keenly Jagged goes through that 3-second cooldown, and every time Keenly Jagged procs, you will be getting that 4 stamina on hit. If you're trying to run away and you hit somebody in the back with your Refreshing Fletch, your Fletch is going to go a little bit off cooldown, but you're also going to get that Keenly Jagged proc, which increases your stamina every second by 4 as you're running away, on top of your natural stamina regen. So overall, this is going to be the best in-slot option you take. For the amulet, we have a health, stamina recovery, and protection amulet. This protection can be slash, thrust, or fire. I still get hit by a lot of great swords and great axes, so I opt to take slash protection. For the ring, there is no better option than a hearty sacred refreshing. Lastly, let's talk about the earring here, refreshing and refreshing toast. 2 mandatory perks. Okay, the third perk is going to be up to you. You can either take healthy toast or focused. Here I have opted to take focused because in my opinion in wars this is the best perk to have, simply because you can slot cleanse potions on your bar instead of mana pots, which is another safety net defense that you need as a healer. Moving on to the consumables, we have the health potion, regeneration potion, cleansing elixir, and fire absorption potion. We also have the 40 stat food. One thing to note here is that the Feast O' Plenty food trophy is no longer obtainable. This is from the Turkulon event of last November. It increases your food buff duration by 25%, so if you have it, it's something to keep up at all times. We have the Heartrune, the stalwart Heartrune of stone form. This is the one that heals you every second while active. It heals for 75%. This is going to be the best Heartrune to get to increase our survivability. Lastly, let's talk about the gems. Personally, I'm still a 4 onyx, 4 opal type of guy. I like to be resistant against everything in a flat way while having that extra protection towards whatever it is necessary. Having 10% elemental is a lot better than having 2 opals or 2 rubies or whatever elemental you like to slot. You'll get more overall resistance to everything, so you'll be protected more from detonates, ice damage, void damage, fire damage. It's just better overall to be protected from everything rather than one source. Same thing with the onyxes here. Okay, so 4 onyx in our armor, stopping all of that bow, warhammer, and slash damage. In the life staff, we still want to have the rune glass of Arboreal Diamond. The Arboreal Diamond is going to inflict the poison, which has that damage over time effect, increasing our stone form regeneration, and it still gives us that 15% healing, even though it says plus 12% here. And lastly, for the rapier, we have the rune glass of Energizing Amber, plus 4 stamina on hit. Very solid. Now that we're done with the Lights of Brit group healer best of slot guide, you can take all of that information and apply it to both either the beacon group healer or the splash of light group healer, depending on what you like. And once again, this is going to be down in the description below. On to the settings portion of the video. There is 2 settings I want to mention here, and that is going to be the block keybind. As you guys see here, if we unkeybind our block, it is going to regenerate our stamina every time we cancel our cast, compared to when the keybind is set. If you try to cancel your heals when you have the keybind set, it's going to pull up your life step and not regenerate your stamina at all. So what we want to do is go into our settings and make sure it's unkeybound or rekeybind to another key that is not right mouse button. For this to completely work though, we also need to make sure that our aim is keybound to right mouse button. So if you do not have anything here, make sure that it's set to right mouse button. The next setting I want to mention here is targeted healing. I want you to go into your settings and make sure that this is set to on. You cannot group heal without it. But the most important part here is that group mode is turned off. You want to have this setting turned off at all times, so you are allowed to heal out of your group easily without much frustration. If you have this turned off, however, you do need to use your keybinds, and making sure you have the proper keybinds is what's going to make you a faster and better, more efficient healer. Back to the healing settings though, we want to make sure that freeform camera is turned on and the rest of the settings are turned off. Having freeform camera turned on is going to allow you to heal and look around like this without having your camera restricted to the target you're healing. Lining up auto attacks to min-max your blissful touch healing and to get CDR is a big part of healing. If you run high cooldown abilities like Splash of Light or Beacon, you want to be auto attacking every time you can if possible. Another tip you probably might know is, of course, to heal players below half HP with Divine's Embrace to get those instant refresh Divine's Embrace procs. You need to also be using the Rapier for movement whenever you can. Some ways to use Rapier for your movement is to backwards evade out of gravity wells. If you're stuck in an ice shower, you can also fletch out of the ice shower instead of dodge. Fletch does not have the movement restriction that dodge has when you're slowed, so you'll gain more distance by fletching out of ice storms and ice showers. Obviously, riposte incoming damage, and if you need to cancel your riposte, you can evade backwards as well. All right, so we're at the Windsward Fort right now. We're going to be talking about managing stamina, dodges, and properly getting space, as well as talking about positioning. Anything I say here on the defender side can also be applied to the attacker side. Before we do this, however, we kind of need to understand the area of the point and the quadrants that take place here. So this is about the middle of the point. This is usually where the flag is placed. We have the bonfire side here. We have the opposite bonfire side here, we have top left quadrant over here, we have top right quadrant there, and then the bottom right quadrant and the bottom left quadrants. So generally speaking, you do not want to stand in these bottom quadrants on the left side or the right side. These are where the enemies like to push in here. They like to wrap super far from top left quadrant all the way to bottom left quadrant, and then they pressure the road. So generally your backline is pretty unsafe most of the wars, and it's going to be like this in every war. So there's really no specific spot to stand that I could tell you that's going to be the best possible option. It's going to be up to you to decide and gauge where the enemies play. But generally speaking, enemies do like to wrap into this bottom left and bottom right quadrant, which makes these areas very unsafe. I also call these things red zones. Another tip is every time you're casting a heal, always look around you. Back to the quadrants, however, so if we kind of put like an imaginary line through the middle of bonfire all the way through the flag into opposite bonfire, this is going to be the space that you never want to pass as a healer unless it's your job. Like I said earlier in the video, if you kind of have to play in the road, then you kind of have to go there. But generally speaking, if you go past this imaginary line as a healer, you are playing the class wrong. Okay, that is enemy territory, and if you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by going into enemy territory, you're going to be having to move around a lot, which means the potential of your group dying is at its highest. So I'm telling you all of these bad spots to avoid, like the bottom left and the bottom right quadrants, as well as the road here. So where do you actually stand in a war? Well, that's going to be based on where the enemy's playing. If they push super far in these bottom right quadrants, you can actually kind of play a little closer to point, and sometimes you might be able to tuck yourself in these little corners here next to bonfire. Anywhere closer to the point is generally a little safer than playing super far back over here or in the road or kind of over here. Like I said again, if you tuck yourself a little closer, you'll kind of avoid most of that damage, especially the bows and fire staffs, but you do got to be careful for all of this CC that happens here with all the warhammers and great axes, gravity wells, ice showers, etc. Right? So this is also not like the best place to stand. Fortunately, as a healer, you kind of have to deal with so much, so it's going to be up to you to avoid most of the damage in CC. Now, managing our stamina is going to be one of the biggest parts of healing as well. Of course, we need to dodge for the bend light perk, but we don't want to dodge every time our stamina is up because we do not want to be at a disadvantage if we do get jumped on. One thing I recommend to healers is to dodge before they cast an ability. That way their bend light is fully procced and each one of their abilities is ready to go with full healing bonus, and you can continue healing after that. And every 6 seconds, that's when you dodge instead of continuously dodging like this, to where you put yourself at a stamina disadvantage. There's two types of healing playstyles that you need to learn and get the hang of. The first one is preemptive healing, which consists of you pre-casting your heals on a target that is about to take damage. That way, as soon as your heal goes off and the damage gets taken, it's healed instantly. The second playstyle is reactive healing. Pretty much you're reacting to the damage and then you're healing. And this one is very important as well, because sometimes you'll be healing someone in your group, but you need to instantly swap to another target to heal them. And making sure you have proper keybinds that you know and understand is going to be the #1 way you get better at reactive healing. Lastly, arguably the most important part of healing is communication. You need to properly be communicating when your heals are going out, when your sacred is going out, who you're casting your heal on, where you're playing, where it's safe, where it's not safe, where the enemies are coming from, if the enemies are rotating, if it's safe to push up, if your team needs to pull back. Every single one of these micro things you need to manage, and that is something you can only get by playing with a consistent 5-stack, OPR with friends, or anything that requires group play. Some generic comms you could use is DE on X, X being someone you're casting your heal on. Another generic comm is sacred on X, and then say the generic location where they're playing. So sacred on X, top left point. That is a very, very notable and good comm that you need to get the hang of. When you're getting pressured and you need to start moving around, you got to say repositioning, you have no heals, something around the lines of that. Lastly, if you cast a Divine's Embrace on someone but it doesn't go off cooldown because you did an instant proc, you need to give some sort of communication that tells your team that you have no healing ability available. If you stuck around this long to watch the video, don't forget to leave a like and a subscription for the channel. It really does help. We ended up getting monetized this year, and I am excited to start making a little bit of money on YouTube. Hopefully one day we'll be up there with the big dogs, and if you want to make that possible, show some support. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them down in the comments below, and once again, peace, baby.